These final UN speeches, there's always something about them. It's
Yeah.
not just saying goodbye. It's leaving your mark. And with this election going on, Biden's speech, it had this extra weight to it.
Yeah, it's like we're watching a drama unfold on the world stage trying to guess what happens next.
Totally. And Biden, he wasn't holding back. He called it, get this, a historical turning point.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, that's a big statement.
No kidding. Makes you wonder, is that just talk or is something really big happening right now?
Right, because looking back at the past year, it does feel different.
Yeah.
And a lot of what he talked about, straight from the headlines. Like Ukraine, he spent a good chunk of time on that.
Of course. Can't avoid that one.
Exactly. But he wasn't just repeating the same old stuff. He honed right in on Sweden and Finland joining NATO.
That's where things get interesting. On the surface, just two more countries joining a club, right?
Right.
But zoom out a little, and it's a huge power shift, especially in Europe. Everyone lining up against Russia changes everything. How much money countries spend on defense, who they talk to, the whole game.
Like a chain reaction, one thing setting off another.
Exactly.
And speaking of chain reactions, we got to talk Israel-Hamas. Biden's walking a tightrope there.
Oh, absolutely. He had to condemn Hamas, obviously. But he also called out the violence against Palestinians.
Tough spot for the U.S., right? Supporting an ally, but also wanting peace. And then there's the humanitarian crisis.
And don't forget, he's pushing hard for that ceasefire, really showing that diplomatic side. Even brought up the UN Security Council, backing him up, which is a big deal. Means even with all this mess, there's still that effort, that hope for a peaceful solution, that international cooperation. It matters.
A little bit of light in the darkness.
Hmm.
Speaking of Sudan, man, that's rough.
Just goes to show, while everyone's looking one way, other places fall apart. When Biden called out those countries arming the warring sides, that was important.
Like, hey, world, stop making it worse.
Exactly. And this is where it all ties to something bigger, something most people don't even think about, the global arms trade, who's selling what to whom, and the consequences. Devastating consequences. It's a mess, frankly.
Okay, so we've got wars, shifting alliances, humanitarian disasters, and then Biden throws this curveball artificial intelligence. Felt kind of out of place. Between talk of bombs and ceasefires, suddenly it's robots and algorithms.
And yet, it might be the most important thing he talked about.
Really?
Think about it. These conflicts, awful as they are, they're happening now. AI could reshape everything. How we live, how we work, even how we fight wars. Biden said it himself.
He even wants ethical AI, which easier said than done.
Right. It's a minefield, really.
Hmm.
This ethical AI, it's not just some nice idea, it's the heart of the problem. AI is changing so fast we can't keep up. It's like trying to write a rule book for a game while the players are already breaking all the rules.
So another piece of this historical turning point puzzle. But how does AI play into everything else that's going on in the world right now?
Think about it. All these conflicts we're talking about, all that power shifting. Now imagine AI in the mix.
Oh, boy.
Autonomous weapons, right. Getting smarter, more independent every day. Or imagine AI used to mess with information, turn people against each other on a global scale. This isn't sci-fi anymore. This is real.
It's like Biden saying, hey, yeah, we've got all this other stuff going on, but don't forget about this AI thing, because you could blow everything up.
And that's why he's so keen on everyone working together on this. If we can't even agree on some ground rules, forget about it. The consequences are terrifying.
Speaking of working together, he also talked about climate change, right? But then you've got things like that Quad meeting, where it seems like the U.S. is mainly focused on China. It feels kind of contradictory. Can we cooperate globally, A&D compete with China at the same time?
That's the million-dollar question. Cooperation, competition, can those two even exist in the same sentence? It's a tightrope walk, for sure.
For those who don't know, what exactly is this Quad thing, and why does it matter so much?
So officially, it's the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. It's basically the U.S., Japan, Australia, and India teaming up.
Okay.
And a lot of people see it as a direct response to China throwing its weight around in the Indo-Pacific. So yeah, Biden's all about global cooperation, but there's also this other game being played at the same time.
Two sides of the same coin, I guess.
Oh.
He's trying to walk that line. On one hand, we need everyone on board, especially for something like climate change, right?
Absolutely. Can't solve that one alone.
Exactly. But then there's the reality of the world, right? The U.S. can't just ignore what's happening geopolitically.
Exactly. And this whole cooperation versus competition thing, you saw it again when Biden mentioned Afghanistan.
Right, he didn't talk about it much.
Huh. No, but he brought it up, talked about the soldiers who died, those 13 at Abbey Gate, and the thousands over the years. A sobering reminder, These global entanglements, they come at a cost.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it kind of highlights the issue with Biden's whole diplomacy thing, his push for everyone to work together. Because even as he's saying that, he's dealing with the consequences of when we didn't do that, when things went wrong.
It really makes you think, with all this happening, all these potential disasters waiting to happen, are we really at this turning point Biden's talking about? Or is it just something presidents say to make their speeches sound important?
I think, yeah, this watershed moment, it's real, but it's not like flipping a switch. It's more like, tremors, some you barely feel, some shake everything up. Ukraine, China, the climate, AI, it's all pushing us in new directions.
Yeah.
And we don't always know where we'll end up.
It's a lot to take in. All these things happening at once, these huge, scary possibilities. Easy to feel kind of helpless,
It is, but it also means we're living through something big. History in the making. We don't have all the answers, but what we do now, it matters for everything that comes next.
So what do I do with that?
Yeah.
You and me just trying to understand this crazy world. It all feels so huge. What difference can we even make?
That's where it all starts, though. Staying informed, really
Yeah.
thinking about what we see and hear. Because there's always more than one side to the story, right? It's easy to just accept what we're told, but the truth is always more complicated.
Like we were saying before, digging deeper, looking beyond the headlines.
Exactly. It's in those details, the stuff most people miss. That's where you start to understand things.
So knowledge is power, or at least a place to start.
100%. When you know what's going on, you can ask the right questions, challenge the people in charge. It's how we make sure they're doing the right thing. It's how we make democracy work.
Like our own little deep dive, right?
Mhm.
We might not have Biden on speed dial, but we can still learn about this stuff, talk about it.
Exactly. And those conversations, who knows what they might lead to? New ideas, new solutions, or at the very least, we understand each other better. That's got to count for something.
So to bring it all back to Biden's speech, it seems like the takeaway is, well, it's complicated.
Pretty much. But it's about more than just that. It's about realizing we're in this time of huge change. So many forces pulling us in every direction. No easy answers. We need to work together, even when we're competing against each other. It's a tough needle to thread.
That's what gets me. He wants global unity, but the U.S. is also trying to, keep China in check. Can you really have both?
That's the big question, isn't it? Can we build a better world, a more cooperative world, while also playing this high-stakes game against a country like China? Finding that balance, that's going to define the next decade, maybe longer.
It's like his whole speech was trying to do that.
Yeah.
Talking about unity, but also acknowledging those cracks, those fault lines.
Exactly. And in the end, what it tells us is the future isn't set in stone. What we do today, the decisions we make, the things we talk about, it all makes a difference.
Well said. And to everyone listening, it's on us to have those conversations. You might not have the UN on speed dial, but you can still help shape what comes next. Learn about these global hotspots. Question what you think you know. Talk to someone who sees things differently. Every little bit counts.
Couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, we're all in this together.
And on that note, we'll leave you to think about this watershed moment we're in. Until next time, keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.